Hi, my name is Ali Gonzalez and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to have a small discussion about why is our health declining in the United States, and we can discuss the rest of the world, but we want to focus on the United States. I have a few guests with me today. I have Lexis, and your last name Serot. Am I saying that right?
Serot, you nailed it, yeah.
And Dr. David Neuman. Lexis, you want to start? Say something about yourself and your business?
Sure, absolutely. I'm Lexis Serot. I'm the founder of LittleWins.com. It's an online marketplace to facilitate the sale or trade of used medical equipment and supplies for individuals with disabilities. I'm a mom of four. One of my little ones has cerebral palsy, which was, I created Little Wins out of my own pain points. And the purpose is to just information sharing and also free up access to equipment that's necessary, extremely necessary to so many who cannot get it. And I live in Chicago. And what else would you like to know? I'm a Sagittarius. I do like cheeseburgers. I just got reamed by Dr. David Neuman for that, but that's all right. And I'm really glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And Dr. David.
Hi, so great to be here. Thanks so much, Ali. I'm a board-certified orthopedic surgeon who, after doing a lot of surgery for about 20 years, realized that there's more than just surgical outcomes or the process of surgery to help people optimize their performance and overcome chronic pain. And then I started a company. It's a digital therapeutic company called POP-DOC.com. And we create and design corrective exercise therapy programs to help people overcome chronic pain and also become more functional in their livelihood. And I'm just happy to have met Ali and Lexis over the course of business to be able to be here today to share some thoughts and insights regarding overall health of Americans. So I'm just grateful to be here and thank you for including me.
Well, thank you both. It's a partnership, and I really appreciate you both coming on. So, to get this started, I want to take a few years back and step prior to the pandemic, because right now, what took place during the pandemic sped us up in a pretty bad way in declining health. And I'll explain how this really took place in my perspective, and you can intervene and agree or disagree. But prior to this, I would say corporate companies started around 2005, 2007, right around there. They started building gyms into their operations, these big IT companies, especially Silicon Valley. And it happened across the United States, Texas, and so on. And they started subsidizing or giving away free healthy food in their dining centers. So it's a multi-billion, I would say over $100 billion business to have corporate dining, have food cafes in the workplace. And they noticed that they were going to lower healthcare costs, and it was working. People were eating healthier. They were going to the gym every day, so they didn't have to travel. It was a free gym membership. So everyone was getting healthier. Then we started working from home. And happy hour, instead of 5 o'clock or 3 o'clock, became 10 o'clock while they're on Zoom, ordering takeout, sitting there, eating, snacking all day while they're working, because they had no other place to go, and they just started eating, and the health really declined because, again, they got tired of cooking at the beginning. They wanted to cook, and then resources and water and washing dishes. And this is what started, and you've seen a higher case of alcoholism and smoking over the last few years. And this is where our health is starting to decline. And I want to talk about the food products in this video. I want to talk about what we're feeding ourselves, what we're eating. I would like to discuss, the fix. Is there a fix? When we look at all this, in addition, they're talking about, population decline in the next 20 years. With that, we have increase of disease, heart disease, diabetes. You see a lot of autism out there now. Yeah. And I believe all this stuff is because of our health. So again, a decline in population and a decline in life expectancy and unhealthy practices. You see that perfect storm coming in the next 10 to 20 years.
Do you feel that there's a decline in population that's coming? Only because let's say every decade, our population has gone up about 10% for the last 50 years. Because of modern medicine and the way we can keep very young people alive or keep very old people alive, at least living doesn't mean that they have a great life. It just means that they are living. That population is growing, even though the health of the overall population is certainly diminishing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they just recently put out a report that India finally surpassed China. But as far as the reports are going, from what I've seen recently, a lot of the younger generation are not having kids, or they're not having them until after 30 or 40 years old. And they're only having one when they were having two or three. And that's, if you notice in the last few years, China lifted off that ban from one child per household. So because they're trying to increase the population. But again, there's speculation on more reports coming out every day on this topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. On our intro call the other day, didn't you say that last year the life expectancy had gone down, or like the average life,
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yep, it has.
Is there a trajectory for that? Are we tracking that?
Unfortunately, well, I think the U.S. does track that, but I also think that COVID is an odd blip in our last 50 years, because we haven't had a pandemic like that really kind of created a lot more death, and therefore the overall average age until you die went down.
Right.
I think prior to COVID, it was holding steady or even going up a little bit because of modern medicine, and because the social media has encouraged us to try and start living better, even though we're not doing a good job at it.
Well, we're at obesity at 40%. That's extremely high. And that's in the United States alone. We're not talking about other countries. Now, other countries, have no pasteurization laws. They ban a lot of the products that we use here in the United States because they're extremely dangerous to your health. Yeah. So when we look at, the food system, the food chain is completely broken. And the more and more I do my research, I've been doing this for the last year, and I've been in the industry for 35 years. But now I'm really focused on the products and what we're eating, what we're putting in our bodies. And this is everything from vegetables to fruits. It's not just processed foods. But, if you can just take some of these foods that you're eating every day and take them out of your diet, take them out of your food system, that's one change you can do to make yourself healthier. So, if we want to discuss this, we're talking about seed oils, the processed canned goods that have more sodium and preservatives and it's probably better for you to drink a can of Coke. That I don't recommend Coke or sodas, but it's probably better than to have that can of soup. Our salt isn't real salt. There's aluminum in it. It's flaked. Our black pepper has stuff in it. So when you think about things and what you're eating, it doesn't always tell you on the package. And our government allows you to manipulate the wording on the back of a lot of these ingredients, such as margarine says no trans fat, but there is trans fat in it. And it's in place in other words. And what I always say, if you can't pronounce it, if you can't spell it, and you don't know what it is, you shouldn't be eating it. We go out there and there's so many artificial colors and flavors in everything. It's basically common sense. I shouldn't be buying this drink because it's red, it's blue, it's green, all these unnatural colors. We're creating foods out there that are not natural for us.
Well, and before you hopped on, David, I had been listening to a podcast on my way in this morning about how, first mRNA, like that whole thing that we're doing to animals and how that affects us when we eat them. But I did not know that we're mixing cows to make that one single hamburger patty. Maybe everyone knows that, but I didn't know that. So that was particularly disturbing when they went on to say that we no longer as a country require the origin of that particular beef patty to be stated on the packaging. So it could be from Mexico, it could be from a whole another country, and then we're mixing them all together. It's just like we don't know what's in it, and you don't even, it's not required to know where it's from either. That's a problem to me. Did you all know that? You guys just know that.
Well, it makes, I wouldn't be surprised, unfortunately, because even the term organic doesn't necessarily mean organic, because there's too many loopholes and there's too many kind of policies in place that allow you to call something organic, even though 100% of the ingredients are not.
And is it still true, guys, that in the first you pay most attention to like the first 5 ingredients in something? Like, is that still a thing? Like, if it lists the ingredients, there's predominantly more of the first 5-ish ingredients.
To the most part, I don't think everyone reads the back of the packages, but even at that, like I said, I'm reading table salt, and it just says salt in the ingredients. It doesn't tell you where it's farmed, where it's comes from, if there was mercury in the ocean, where it comes from,
Right.
Why the aluminum, where the flaking is coming from. And back to your point about the cows, in the United States alone, we have about 700,000 cow farmers. Now, they come from a breeder, then they go to where they're being grass fed or corn fed, and you don't know what that corn isn't organic. It probably, as much corn as we use in the United States, the abundance of it, the GMOs, the chemicals they put in that corn, that feeds the cows, over 12,000 pounds per each cow. Now, from there, they raise them, they feed them, and then they send them off to slaughterhouses. Then they slaughter them, then they break them down. And so again, how many hands does it go through?
Right.
So that's where it comes down to your point, Lexis, where, all this meat is all mixed, and where's it coming from? So it's too hard to track.
Right. And I think that, like, I hate to say these things and just present a problem with no solution, right? But sometimes there isn't technically a direct solution to a situation, but awareness is, like, especially for me at least, really comforting. Just being aware that could be potentially this situation with your beef. The beef with the beef. That could be.
I don't want to focus on beef and say it's beef, because I mean we've changed over the last, I would say, 3 or 4 decades, where we're farming in the oceans from Europe to Mexico and having some beautiful, great fish, fresh as can be. And now it's all farm raised, and they're basically, when you think about it, and it's not just the farm raising and where it's coming from. And we created these problems ourselves in the ocean, where we're killing off fish. We have all these computers, these iPhones that we keep buying because we have to have the new technology, have to have the new computer, the latest and greatest. And there's billions and billions and trillions of tons, should I say, of these electronics. So, it's just like the plastics. We recycle and we put through our system plastics from maybe 0 to 4 or 5, but there's from 0 to 7 plastics. So the other numbers that we don't use, we ship them overseas. And so we ship our electronics overseas, and they sit them down on the beach, and they're taking out the mercury, taking out the chemicals, and it runs into the ocean. And that's where it's not just us dumping chemicals in the ocean, but we're doing this with a lot of our electronics. And people don't realize that, just the awareness and doing something about it, just one day at a time, one person at a time, having this knowledge, it's fish, it's chickens. I mean, when did you ever see a 2-pound chicken breast growing up? You didn't. They didn't exist. So, it's not just one thing, it's everything. It's the chemicals. It's because we're trying to mass produce and feed everyone. And it's all about money, so that we can, get it for cheaper.
We're trying to mass produce and feed everybody, but then there's this whole other side of it where we're throwing away all this food, and then the other side where no one has any food. And that all seems like we need to fix that.
And if you remember growing up, as a kid, we're eating grapes in the car and oranges, and we're spitting them out the window, and mom and dad would get mad because we got it all over the window, because we were always in watermelons. You'd spit the seeds out. You'd walk around the playground and spit the seeds out. This is the circle of life where we mass produce, reproduce, and we're not doing that anymore. I mean, seedless grapes, seedless oranges, seedless lemons, seedless watermelons, everything's seedless. Again, it's unnatural for us to live like this, but we're doing it, and we're heading to 100% GMOs, and we're growing beef in petri dishes and chicken now. And again, I'm against it. I think that we need to do this naturally. And they say, we're have shortages of food. Well, we're leaving 50% of the produce on the farmland because we can't pick it.
Mhm.
So these are our issues right now that we have, and this is a part of our declining health because we're putting so many pesticides and chemicals, and we're eating unnatural things, deli meats that have nitrates and so on, and we're sitting there with potato chips every day and sodas and energy drinks, and we're putting fructose into our system, seed oils, and it's almost like a family tree when you think about food. Just even one product. Where are they growing the corn for the corn tortillas that they're making the chips from? And those oils, synthetic oils, pesticides on them, and the list just keeps going on and on and on. It's not like it's just one thing. We're growing corn and spraying it with a pesticide. I mean, we're using corn for cornstarch, for oil, for fuel. We're using it for hundreds of things out there, and we're feeding the animals with it also. So, and that's where it's leading to obesity, and that's where it's leading to unhealthy practices, and that's why our health is declining.
And not only to only go with the food side of things, but just to pile on the garbage and the negativity is that our society is more and more sedentary than ever. The work from home stuff, the stuff on TV kind of encourages us to sit on the couch and watch it. And we sit at our desks all day if we go into work. So there's a ton of sedentary lifestyle going on. So this is adding on to the poor diet and nutrition that we're putting in our bodies. So it's a two-edged sword. And as a surgeon, if I come in and see somebody with knee problem, if their weight is adding to some of this knee problem, then you can do a great job in the operating room, but it's not going to change their weight. It's not going to really help them in the long run. So it is an exercise or an activity, an active lifestyle that is also falling to the wayside.
And I gotta say, as a single mom, during the beginning part of, like, I hate saying the word pandemic, whatever. During that, when all of a sudden it was slammed into not only working from home, which I chose to do before, so I could run the kids back and forth to school, and I can be there if they need something, and also it was quiet and less expensive, and then having to homeschool. And you're just tired. You're just sitting there. You just sit there. And I did fall victim to that takeout situation. I am not going to lie to you. I definitely did for a little while. It was easier. I didn't know how to homeschool, and I'm not making excuses. It's just that when all of that came down and all of it was going on, especially the first couple of months, there was so much adjustment for me to try to factor in that, yes, I did that. The chips, oh yeah. I did the takeout for sure. I sat down whenever I could because I was tired, mentally and emotionally exhausted. And I didn't really go for as many walks until, I recognized my own pattern, and then, implemented the daily walk, or like some kind of kinetic wellness that, if we're homeschooling for the whole day, then it's my job to teach PE too. That was a tough adjustment for me personally.
Well, we all have our demons, and we're all victim to them. I mean, we love a good shot of whiskey, and I love candy and chips too. I mean, but it's making those changes one day at a time, and being able to acknowledge them. But we're trying to cheat death every day. So they go and get the lap band, they try to have surgery. You can't cheat your health. Going to the gym every day, it does you no good. And I mean that in a different way, where if you're going to eat all that junk food and you're still going to go out and drink and have chips and eat 2 pounds, and that's the other thing that I would like to discuss is overeating. But we're going to eat all that bad food. You can go to the gym and work out every day all you want. Your health is still going to decline.
Correct.
Yep.
And we should be portioning our food to about 12 ounces a meal. You can eat 4 or 5 meals a day if it's completely portioned at 4 ounces and 4 ounces of carb, veggie, and protein. But we're not. We're going to these restaurants and we're buying value meals and supersizing, and we're getting a whole rack of ribs and 8 ounces or 12 ounces of mashed potatoes, and we're saying, "Woohoo! Look at this value." I mean, I'm out eating this big old meal, and it's not good for you. You
All
shouldn't
you can eat. All you can eat.
you shouldn't be proud of that, because that's declining to your health. And we're trying to cheat the system, but there is no cheating. It is your health, and it's what you're putting into your gut nowadays. And I think that I'm just going to say, not everyone is educated to this. They don't come out and tell you. The marketing out there focuses on what they want to sell you. Every time you see the Super Bowl, what is there? 30 million, 60 million. It's always the most watched event of all year. And what are the ads? Beer, potato chips, processed foods, unhealthy things. And it's because they can make millions and millions and billions of dollars on that. And as I'm reading the list for fast food restaurants across the United States, the top 10 are over 200,000. But when you really think about it, we have over 1 million and some. But these fast food chains are making billions and billions of dollars every year. And, it goes right back to, what's coming up right now is, the economy crashing. We may go into the Great Depression. We don't know. We don't know when we're going to get out of this or not. But with poverty and $16 trillion in credit card debt, the homes are going to start foreclosing again. How are we going to eat? How do they feed them? Is it on welfare, WIC? I mean, where does poverty go? What do we eat when we do that? Mac and cheese, cereal, cup of noodles. Mom and dad say, I gotta go to work, and I'm gonna go buy some pre-made food, and I'm gonna leave it for you. You heat it up in the microwave. You heat it up, or you just eat the cereal out of the box. And that's what happens. And starvation, actually, because a lot of parents can't afford the food, so they may get dinner, but they may not get breakfast and lunch.
Right. And I definitely agree. I have noticed, certain doctors' offices too, with all these kids, when I'm just filling out their pre-appointment, what do you call it, Dr. David?
Assessment,
whatever.
Yeah.
And they've started to include, which I like to see. I just don't, I don't know where it goes. They do say now, do you fear that you won't have food tonight, that you won't get a meal today? If so, would you like us to reach out? I almost wanted to click it just to see what happens. Like, please tell me somebody's on the other end of that line, because I love to see that question. Are you afraid for your safety? Would you like, a follow-up call? Are you, do you fear you won't have something to eat tonight? I think that's a great change, but I don't know where that goes. I'd like to follow through on that. Maybe we will. I don't want to bother them if they're busy. But I like seeing that. I like the awareness, but it does also trigger in me sort of like, are we, just as you said, like, we're going downhill fast if they're already starting to ask, like, poverty's gonna.
Well, this is a question actually for Dr. Neuman. If they do fill out these assessment questions and answers, these questionnaires, are they being honest with themselves? They filling out honestly? Would you know this? Are they, when they says how many times you smoke a week, and they go, maybe once or twice. But when they're doing it every day, are they really saying how many times do you really exercise? And they figure, well, I took a walk. But are they really honestly answering these questions properly?
Yeah, it's a good point for sure, because either whether they are or not, who on the other end is doing anything about it?
Right.
That's important. But yes, they should be honest with themselves, because the individual has to think what their long game is, where they want to be in 5 or 10 years, and do they just want to continue increasing their weight, or giving their kids bad food, or just struggling through with mental health. There's so many different facets to it, and it's tough to find solutions, really, because it's out there, and whether they say I have 5 drinks a week or I have 10 drinks a week, who's seeing that data and who's helping them cut it down a few more or something like that? It's messy. And we unfortunately in this conversation so far, we've just highlighted a lot of the negative trends and the obstacles we have as a community or state or country to turn the tables on our healthcare system and on our individual health. It's a big problem.
Well, the solution here, I mean, it's good to point it out. So, I mean, we're not being negative in any of this in any which way. We have to bring awareness to people in order for them to fix it. But, we're so focused on social media and propaganda, and I see the same media over and over and over again. But this is not being marketed. And, forgive me for saying this, but I don't think the institutions want you to market towards this and healthier eating. They say they do, but again, there's trillions and trillions of dollars being lost if people change their ways and not buy that stuff. I mean, when you go through the supermarket as you're checking out, candy, chips, sodas, energy drinks, so you can just grab on the way out. It's impulse buying. Now, why don't they put fruit, apples and oranges, bananas at the checkout? You might see it change. It'll turn around because everyone's saying, "Oh, that looks good. That's a great orange. That's a nice banana. I forgot to eat this banana. So I need to take some for my kids," because it's great when you put the fruit right in front of the children at home in a basket right there. As they're walking by, they're going to grab a banana or an apple and they're going to eat it. Now, when you have that candy there and the snacks and the chips, and they know where to go in that cupboard or that drawer, they know exactly where to go. That's their impulse. But the parents are the ones that create that. And it's the same thing with the school system. When they have vending machines full of snacks, the kids are going to go and purchase those snacks. And don't tell me that there's a healthy chip and a healthy snack out there. When you look at the back of it, when you read the sodium and all the stuff that goes into it, and if it was fried in seed oil, or even if it was baked, how was it baked? I mean, there's no such thing as a healthy snack out there that I've seen in those vending machines. They just like it's just smaller and lesser calories, but there's still sugars, there's still sodium in it.
Yeah, well, it's smaller and lesser calories because there's only 4 chips in that bag. It's true. But before I lose the moment, I also wanted to add to, what you were saying about awareness and not to sound like a bunch of Debbie Downers here. It's more just information. And when you don't know that, it's important to know it. It's important to know maybe for one person out there that, I struggled with just ordering takeout for a couple months there because I didn't know what to do. And I had to make conscious changes. And once everything kind of leveled out and relax into a different routine, and that if you had to do that too, you're not alone. Like if you ended up finding yourself sedentary and not working out and just trying to get through those first couple months or years, you're not alone. But awareness, and then that community sense and being able relatability, and then now we have like solutions. So I think that's really important about this chat.
Well, I think that, and I know this is not going to happen, but I mean, you have to get Congress involved and go through a lot of channels. But shouldn't we be subsidizing healthy food or certain products in the U.S. so that we can eat better? Because we know with poverty, you're going after that $1.50 mac and cheese. You're going after that, 50 cents or 15 cents cup of noodles because it's cheap and it's easier to buy and you can afford it. Now, when it comes to organics, and if it truly is organic and grass-fed beef, that's almost double or triple. So you're going to stay away from that.
Yeah.
You're going to find other solutions. You're going to go to the hamburger helper because you can stretch it out and feed an entire family instead of going and having a 3 or 4 course meal. So, it starts with Congress. It starts with, us bringing awareness out. And when you go to the farms, why do we have to have those apples and the tomatoes and zucchini sprayed and with wax and everything?
Yeah, why? Honestly, can someone tell me why? Because I can't get it off. I can't get
Does
it
it
off.
look pretty and they're trying to sell it more? Did you know that red skin potatoes aren't really red skins? Have you ever seen them coming off the conveyor belt? They're
Yes,
bluish brown, and
they're
they have this water hose with this red spray, and they're spraying them.
Yeah, and now they look like, yeah, it's disgusting. But I literally can't get it off, and I feel like that's getting thicker. So that's why I miss in the summer here we have all these apple picking farms, and and then you get as close to a real apple as you can get in this country. And the difference is crazy. I almost said bananas. The difference is bananas. Yeah, that's terrifying. And that's why we were talking the other day about just farmers markets and places where you can, or going to Ali's house and taking some of his eggs. That's ideal. But it is more expensive or it's seemingly more expensive to eat in a healthy manner. I feel like that is really overwhelming to masses. Plus, it seems time consuming. And when you have all this going on in a day, all you have to do, all the many things, and then sometimes you're just going to want that cup of noodles. So I feel like it's important that we shed light on the fact that you're not alone, but there are solutions.
I believe it's all mindset, and I understand the time restraints and everything. Everyone's commuting, and it's not just an 8-hour day now, and you're driving 2 or 3 or 4 hours. I understand that completely, but it doesn't hurt to teach your children or your family members, significant others, how to prep things or how to pull stuff out of the freezer and have it thawed out so you're not waiting. But a zucchini takes 30 seconds to chop up.
Mm-hmm.
And if there is wax on it, I peel all my zucchini because it's so bitter nowadays.
Oh yeah, you got to just.
But it takes literally 30 seconds. Cut off the ends. You just rinse it off real quick and chop it up. And you can throw that in a saute pan. You can steam off some rice if you're that busy. I mean, to be honest with you, if I go to a fast food restaurant right now, I'm waiting an average of 20 minutes in line. And wherever I'm driving to or from, and a lot of people say, well, I'm just happen to be driving from work. Sometimes they don't. They drive 5 or 10 minutes. They wait in line for 20 minutes. They got to drive home another 5 or 10 minutes. You're talking about at least 30 minutes to 45 minutes to go to get takeout. And sometimes you're waiting. You're waiting a long time. And it's not always fast food. You're going to that restaurant. You're waiting for your takeout. So you could spend a lot. You could literally cook your food in about 15 or 20 minutes. You have a 4-ounce chicken breast. You're going to saute real quick, season flour, just have some spice that's pre-made, and just toss it on. Just saute it real quick. Chop up that zucchini, steam off some rice. You got a meal, and it's healthy, and it's quick.
And you can double it, and you can eat it for lunch. So you asked me, or we were talking about it last week, guys, what I do, like some of the things I do at home, and I can't wait to hear David's because I know you have like way better tips and trips. He's very healthy, this man. He's like a beacon temple of health. I couldn't think of all of them when you said, what are some of the things you do at home outside of cooking with my children? Because then multitasking, I get to hang with them, teach them something, and we're making dinner. And it helps me feel just connected to them. But all of that multitasking, all those things I just did within that single moment, plus this depression situation, you got to do these things that are a mood booster. And that is one for me. So apart from that, I was thinking about, I do what you just said. In the morning, I take the meat out of the freezer and put it in the refrigerator because I would sometimes get home and be like, oh my gosh, I'm running out of time. Now I have to thaw the chicken. It's a whole thing. So that was one thing I realized I do that's been really helpful. And then, when you're cleaning up dinner and everything, I put it into I have this cute little lunchbox. I'm sure that shocks you. Like I'll put the leftovers just straight into the lunchbox so I can grab it and go in the morning. And now we've cleaned it up and we have lunch. And I double, well, obviously I have 4 children. I double and sometimes triple the recipe. And label my frozen things with a date. So that I think has really been helpful for me.
Yeah, you have a nice routine set up, it sounds like. And I really appreciate our conversation here as just raising awareness and kind of letting those who are listening know that the small changes and the little things can make your day easier. It can also lead to a healthier lifestyle in the food that you eat. Because big pharma and or big industry, they want to push this bad food on you so they can make profits. That's the capitalism of America. So it's just much easier for a lot of people to do that. But small changes can go a long way. And I think, like you said, putting your putting your leftovers right into a box that you can easily take, and or finding those fresh veggies and cooking your own food is, to me, with my family, it's the same kind of thing. We get together, we chop together, we cook, we spice, we have discussions about it. And it's very helpful. I think it builds a stronger family, and it also allows us to explore healthier habits.
Now, Dr. Neuman, I wanted to ask you, you're always hearing that there's more depression out there. There's more mental issues and everything else that are going on out there. And correct me if I'm wrong, but don't you feel a lot of this is wrapped around the food we eat, the obesity, being tired, the fatigue? You don't want to get up in the morning, you just feel depressed. And I mean, we can talk about all these problems out here, but it contributes to the mindset. And I know that when I'm healthy and I'm eating well, and I'm benching about 235 pounds now. I go to the gym 7 days a week, every morning.
Yeah.
And I change my mindset. I sleep better. So if you're not sleeping, you're overeating, you're eating unhealthy. I think that brings on depression. You're drinking too much, depression, smoking, depression, obesity, depression. Now, when all of this stuff changes in your lifestyle, you're happier and you're doing better and you're doing more.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. And there's so much research going into the gut microbiome, or the small bacteria and the small organisms living in your own gut that are influenced by the food you take, and they're also influential in giving you the energy you want, the less depression, the better mood, maybe better sense of being able to focus. So the gut microbiome is just it's almost like we're just at the foundation to learn about how it influences the individual. And I think that your diet and your mindset kind of help are influenced by your gut microbiome, which is then influenced by what you're putting in your body. So yes, it all makes a lot of sense to me, and that's why I'm just intrigued by those articles that are coming out about how the link is to motivation, how the link is for anything, how the link is to depression, how the link is to obesity, and or just like mental illness, comorbidities, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, those things based on your gut microbiome a little bit. And so we're just kind of opening that door. It's really exciting time for diet and nutrition.
It is, and thank you. I just don't want you to breeze over it because it is so exciting, but probably a lot of people don't know what that means. Right?
I don't either. No.
Look at him. He's like, well, I don't either. Google it.
Well, the word microbiome it's another medical term that is sometimes scary for people, and they see that word and their mind turns off.
Run away. Yeah, run the opposite direction. So let's break it down for the people.
As an orthopedic surgeon, my knowledge of the gut microbiome is only from what I'm reading with some pretty respectable researchers, if you can find them these days, because it's not always fraught with integrity. It's sometimes fraught with a little bit of fraud. But the microbiome is essentially the microscopic organisms that line your gut and that are inside you, that are not part of your body. Meaning you don't get that from birth, but you might get some of it. But I think that your genetic makeup does not determine all of what's inside your gut, because your gut's essentially a tube running from your mouth to the very bottom of your behind, and it's outside your system. So it can be influenced by the food you put into it. But all those organisms and the fungi and the bacteria that are part of what's within your gut help you digest things, help you create the larger foodstuffs into the smaller stuff that then gets into your system and into your organs. And it has a profound effect on your mental health as well as your physical health. And so it's important to take note of it, at least become more aware of it. And there has to be some basic knowledge you can glean from hopefully your doctor. But basically, you'd like to think that the research can be at layperson level, because there's a big problem with medical jargon being lost by the layperson. So the goal is to educate people at a level that they can understand.
Amen. Is that more like, what about probiotics and like, what about that one thing like papaya enzymes, stuff like that? Does that help with? Because I'm telling you, if my stomach hurts, everything is so much harder. Okay, just like everything is harder. And I think that this is when we're trying to think about solutions. Sometimes you have to go that granular because overall, when we talk about all the things we've already mentioned and we've barely scratched the surface, this could be utterly overwhelming or terrifying. So if you go to like, what can we control, or steps that we could take, right? Like that we could take today, even if it was just one, that would be beneficial. And some of those articles I know you're talking about are fascinating. Is what is that a probiotic though? Like an over the counter, like a
I don't, I don't. I believe in moderation, and I also believe in a healthy diet to get you the things you need. I'm not a huge fan of supplements. I'm not a huge fan of taking an over the counter something or other because it's not always well regulated,
mm-hmm.
and and it might cost more money than you're willing to spend, and it's something that might not bring you the value you really want. So as Ali was saying before, having the understanding of healthy foods and making them at home can get you those things. And that also includes the other parts of your lifestyle, which is not diet nutrition related, but it's hydration, it's rest, and those kind of things are also quite important. So you as an individual, you can go out and spend, X amount of money per month on supplements, but if they're not really getting into your system, because a lot of it doesn't really get even through your gut because it gets taken out by your liver or your kidneys the first pass through your system. So you might be losing X amount of percent of that whole supplement, and maybe it's not giving you the benefit of the healthy food that we might be preparing and putting in our body instead.
Right.
And natural remedies of natural foods is the best thing you can have because natural sugar. Listen, what he's talking about right now, which is fructose, which goes straight to the gut and the liver. It's the only place it goes. It doesn't go anywhere else. Now, glucose might go through your regular bloodstream, but then you're going to add on. So you're drinking those fructose drinks, those fruit juices that are not real natural fruit juices, by the way, but you're also putting that seed oil into your system. So you're clogging your arteries to your heart. So you're talking about your gut, your liver. Now you're looking at the fatty foods that are going to your, causing heart disease. And then whatever else is killing brain cells when it comes down to alcohol. So you're looking at so many different directions. If you're going to start eating healthier and being more healthier, the awareness of what you're doing to your body, it's not just one thing. And it's not just one thing that you're eating. It's a combination of things and you have to make that change and just being aware of it. So the next time you go to buy something, you're like, maybe not. I'm not going to get that.
Yeah, and you don't have to change. I get a little worried when, I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you have, David, I'm sure you have met many people where if there's a larger problem and they try to eliminate all the things that they know are not right, then it's too overwhelming and they don't. I think, and I am not a doctor, I'm just a mom and I'm just a citizen of the United States. I have seen that in my life and it's sad. It's hard to watch. And I think if you look at it as a big picture, you got to change absolutely everything about your life. Why don't you just start with like 3, 1, move on to 3, go on to 5. I had a friend that I don't know if I should even say this, would drink a lot of sodas, like so many. And it was too hard for him to not do that at all. So that was the plan. I was like, how about today just 1 less? And then tomorrow 2 less. And like that was just easier to conquer because there's a lot going on here, guys. There's a lot that feels overwhelming. And when we're talking about depression and angst and all this baloney, then I feel like it can be too much for any one person to find any hope in. And the hope is in if you just make these small adjustments and you keep adding to that and you pat yourself on the back for every single time you do it.
Yeah, it's a good point. Great point. You can't bite off more than you can chew. So it's one little change and you do it the same time or the same way, for like 2 to 4 weeks, and it becomes part of the lifestyle, let's say 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So to create a new habit or to lose a bad habit, it takes time, it takes desire, it takes motivation. So if we can offer you awareness as the benefits of doing this, over time, it will make a change for you as an individual and for your whole family. I think that's an important facet to take home.
Yeah, and when we each do that, if we each made one tiny little change, then we become the force that can fight back all of, who are you saying, the evil government people that have controlled our food and made, what if we all
Yeah,
as
big industry.
yeah.
It's just in general. It's a
If we
general
can,
term.
I think the solution here is, again, Congress has to pass laws and basically ban certain food products from the United States. That's a piece of it. They also, they used to have home ec in the old days, but if they could do something to teach kids, again, starting in elementary school, eat this, not that. This is not good for you. Don't serve pizza and fried nuggets and French fries in the school system. And I understand you can't tell them what to eat, what not to eat, but maybe there's a healthy version of lunch that we could come up with. And when you educate, the students in school, they go on to eating better. And that's where it comes down to, again, when you have money and you're in poverty,
Right.
when I used to cater at these homes in Beverly Hills and the Southamptons or wherever I was at, these kids don't eat McDonald's. They're eating sandabs. They're eating halibut. They're eating vegetables. Their snacks are grapes and carrot sticks. It's not candy. It's not a bag of chips. They don't have that in the household. I've never seen it because it's being educated. When they go to school, they educate. They don't serve that kind of food in those schools. It's the school system where we start with, and the family household where the parents teach their kids and not going for the quick, easy, cheap thing. But
Great.
again,
It's a great point. I believe in that, impacting the youth in the way to give them a better understanding and a stronger foundation for better living, diet, sleep, nutrition, exercise, whatever it might be. So starting them young is very important. I remember I have a couple of young kids, and if we go to these class parties and they're bringing in like the sodas and the donuts and the chips and the stuff, I'm like, I would always bring just like a bag of clementines or whatever. I would never be that person to bring in that negative stuff, the stuff that's like, it's too easy, but it's also too painful and too harmful to these young kids, and it's setting the wrong example. And it's unfortunate, but I think it's all over the country.
it's funny. It's a funny story that I used to work for a bunch of colleges and the food service system, and they're always protesting about something. So they wanted healthier food. We want more healthier food, and they're protesting. So they set up a focus group. So when they all came in the back of the credenza, they stuck a few bowls of fruit and a bunch of candy bars with chips. They all walked in, grabbed the candy bars and chips. President of the school said, "Meeting's over." It's basically saying that what you're protesting for this, but you're going after this.
Right.
So there has to be
Yeah.
consistency in the system.
No, it's same thing. I work at a hospital these days, once in a while. I don't work for the hospital. I work at the hospital. I come and like see patients in private practice, but we use the hospital services in the rooms. And in the break room, there's tons of chips and soda and donuts and sodas and I'm like, what? You're a hospital. Why would you present this to the admin staff that's helping the hospital and the clinic run with all this garbage? I mean, there's hardly ever any dried fruit or fresh fruit or nuts. I'm like, guys, whoever's kind of like stocking this workspace is just doing a negative service to those who ingest it. It's sad, but it's so common. I'm sure I'm just like a individual example.
I've seen it, but I do think that and by no means am I the perfect parent. I mean, I try, but can you ever be? I've found that by pureeing my kids' food, and I had the luxury to be able to do so at the time, right? Not everybody does, but by boiling things and pureeing them, giving them vegetables, it created a different standard for their let's say palate. And they eat more vegetables than other kids I've seen at birthday parties. And I also will let them have a treat because I want them to understand moderation. And I have seen at other parties, I'm not saying I'm doing this right. I've just noticed that my kids are not the ones that gravitate towards the treats first because they are allowed a treat and they know they'll get that. They need to eat lunch and they need to, there's a whole cadence to that dining community kind of experience. And it's just not time for that. But then you see some of them, and it breaks my heart that just they don't get them. So they ate like 12 donuts and their stomach hurts. And that's a problem. And so I don't think, and I'm not a doctor, but I don't think that completely eliminating that from the education process of children, from my experience, for whatever that's worth, has been, I don't think that's helpful.
No, you're doing the right thing for your family.
I'm like, is that okay? Am I
No,
speaking?
I think you bring up a great point again about how, you are passing down good habits to your children, and it shows, and you can see it, and it's great. I'm sure it makes you feel awesome, which it should. And this is where we have to, try to influence others who don't do this to, like, say, take those little steps, and you don't have to buy that 99-cent bag of chips when you can buy the 99 on sale fruit that might be there.
Those oranges, those are the little ones that you said.
Yeah.
They love those because they peel them and it's great for their fine.
Yeah, dexterity, sure.
Yeah, and they smell delicious, and we can compost. We can compost those peels, and yeah, I love it. But I don't think this. I just never want to come off as someone who's saying I do this and you don't. I'm just trying to simply share what I have found to be very helpful for my children, and I've seen a positive reaction from them within these environments, and they can be tricky. My kids have definitely had way too much Halloween candy, and I was like, they are zombies. Like, I'm terrified of them. They're tweaking out. and you make changes to that, and I want people to feel like we are a resource.
And we are, and again, that's where it comes down to the household. I mean, I remember growing up, and we all sat down for dinner at the same time, and we all ate the same meal. If we went out, we all ate the same meal. Nowadays, kids have to have something different. They have to go to 3 fast food restaurants, or they have to have so many varieties. I'm not going to eat this, or my kid won't eat that. They're only going to eat this. They have to have pizza or chicken nuggets every day. When we have to stop that behavior.
That happened to me, and I was like, are you insane? 4 different meals. Like, who do you think how many arms do you think I have? I can't do that.
But it's educating. It's the household. It's the parents to put their foot down and say no. And this starts at the early age of, let's say 2, 3, 4 years old. I mean, you allow these bad habits in your household, and it starts at the household, and there's no one else to blame. Yes, I blame marketing. I blame social media for a lot of this stuff, because they glamorize too much that shouldn't be glamorized. But we have to make these changes right now. Like I said, all these diseases are popping up, cancer, everything else. Every time you heard of it, I don't know. I mean, in the last year, I think I've heard 4 people just died of cancer that I knew that I worked with, and 3 more just contracted cancer. And it's really sad that every time I turn around, and I don't know that I think I know about 4 or 5 parents with autism with their kids, and some of them had 2 or 3 kids in a row with autism, and that is really difficult to live a life like that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And just another point about raising kids, someday they'll be off on their own. So by instilling some good habits from a young age and just reinforcing that, it'll become second nature to them. And then when they leave the house, hopefully they know how to use a knife, and they know the benefits and the fun and the joy and even the relaxation of cooking your own food. I think it's awesome.
That's what I mean when I said it gives me a mood boost. I love to cook. You put on some music. You can dance around the kitchen. They learn how to chop, right? We're not fearing knives anymore. They know how they're sharp and this is hot, and like, how to navigate, and you do it together. But for me, it started as a necessity to multitask. I want to spend time with you. I need to cook dinner. And
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
So it was born out of literally just, I ain't got enough time in a day. Well, how do we get this all in? And then showing them and finding that they love it. And when we have pasta night and showing them, really cool YouTube videos of what's the drone videos of like Milan, and showing that, we're in Italy, Italian food, and having that be part of it, I think has been, to my heart and to my stress level, extremely helpful. But we also got dinner done, and we learned how to cook.
Yeah. That plus bringing it into the elementary schools as part of the curriculum and part of the learning environment is about foods and the what and the why and the how. I think it's a great idea. I think it has to just make its way into mainstream education. It's almost as important as reading and math, ultimately.
150%. Yep.
It should be about culture and history, because it starts all the way back from the Egyptians and so on, and every country has their culture. And I have to tell you, traveling to over 40 states, the U.S., I worked with restaurants and there was nothing but the employees were from Acapulco or from El Salvador or the Dominican, the Colombians, and they all have their stuff. And when I looked at the El Salvadorians, they were taking the plantains and making empanadas with them. And it's just like, and then the empanadas in Spain were made with butter, and then Colombians were made with cornmeal. But you learn the different cultures and the food and love and how passionate they are about their culture and their food. Now, when you pass this on in the education system, when you're talking about history, when you're talking about World War II, United States, taxpayers in the U.S. paid for the distribution facilities of Coke. And with that being said, the only two places that we didn't open a place up in the world was Japan and Germany. Okay. But guess what Germany did? Because they couldn't get Coke. They created Fanta. So, I mean, these are great stories for kids to learn, and the culture of how, the food, has developed itself and how it came across. I mean, nowadays it's all about fast casual. So a lot of that culture has gone out the door, but you still can teach. There's some great stories.
I learned that from the pandemic, that word we're not using. I did learn that from the necessity of like, I have 1.5 hours to do all these things. And I also want to teach you, I had got to teach you something. So by including the history and the culture and tradition in different countries and showing them we have all this technology. I mean, a lot of people do, not everybody, but there are still books and things and they want to learn if you're interested.
I know this isn't a healthy story here, but another great one, because this, again, it's all food culture, it's history. The Scottish created moonshine.
Let's speak out about food culture. Like, did we not just we just got a little pep in our step?
There's great stories that lead from one thing to another, because the English were trying to tax them. So they started making their moonshine at night under the moon. So the English still wanted to catch them. So they started throwing these pebbles and rocks on the ground because it was so muddy, which they created roads in the same way that we develop roads these days. So there's stories that are intertwining, and it goes back hundreds and thousands of years. Beer was made by accident, barley and hops, left outside during a rainstorm, and it fermented. So again, these stories just keep going on and on and on. And I think that the kids are going to get they're going to get so interested, because you can still talk about World War II and the Great Depression and what they ate and how they had to survive in poverty.
And anything but what's on television, talk about anything but what, and not but like maybe shake it up every once in a while. I think that like, look how giddy we both get. You could have like a bad day, and if you think about, let's take a little culinary trip really quick to Italy.
Yeah,
And
that's a great little educational outreach as well, is to see different cultures, because in America we don't really have a food culture that we can call our own, unfortunately. Because therefore it's hard. So therefore we have to use other countries' cultures to integrate it into our kids and into the way that they're growing up. There's a lot of influence by our ancestry rather than what we currently call the American culture of food.
I was
Doesn't
like,
seem like there is one.
yeah, what would we call that? Like hot dogs and mac and
It's
cheese?
disgusting. Let's hope not.
I got one disgusting out of you. I always love it when
We always learn from them, because we're a country of immigrants, and even in New Orleans in the mid 1800s, how they cooked. So the French Canadians came over here and taught them how to use butter and cream, and that's where they got their etouffees and
Yeah.
heavy dishes. So
butter.
there's culture was brought into the United States, and that's where we learned, and that's where we passed it on, and we combined our efforts.
But I love butter, and you can't take that away from me. I'm going to say it again, just like I did last week. I will cook with it. I know you don't love it.
Well,
but
as long as it comes from a veritable source. I mean, you can have butter that comes with cows that are just so pumped filled with antibiotics and hormones that butter is just a direct reflection on the cow it came from.
What about the Irish butter? That one. That's the one I like. The Irish. Don't, okay, actually lie to me right now. Okay, look at your face.
Well, we're not promoting any one brand here on this
fine.
program, but there are some decent butters, but I certainly would do some research before, and in moderation, like anything else,
Anything else? That's what we're saying. Like anything else, if you can't change absolutely everything at one time, I'll be keeping butter. I'll be moving forward with butter.
Yeah. Go ahead and cook with it lightly, but don't spread it on a bunch of toast and just eat it pure.
No, I like
it's changing. We're not saying that you don't have to live. The great thing about food is being able to live, having that glass of wine, having, those French fries once in a while. I'm not saying to stop it, but, take the artificial colors out of your diet, take and just moderation, little by little, and you'll start to change your habits.
Yeah, it's such a valuable thought process and mindset. Ollie, thank you.
Yeah,
and that's, I guess, your whole mission with Sustainable Culinary Solutions is probably attacking that mindset. Little changes in moderation, get rid of the stuff that we already know is poisonous, cancer causing, just bringing you down from a health standpoint.
And mental standpoint, like you said, like with the depression and all the things like that go on with it, it's like it's bringing down the team average for sure. And I am so grateful that you both of you in your two different ways share this kind of information and make it put it out there. I think that it's so needed.
Well, we could go on for hours and hours here.
Yes.
And I would love to, but I know that you both are busy and you have other things on your schedule for today. I would like to thank you both for coming on the show and hopefully promoting this and getting it out there to as many as we can. Anyone can contact myself, and if they want to get a hold of Lexis or David, just email me, and I'll have one of my admins forward over their information if they want to get a hold of you directly at sustainableculinarsolutions.com. Again, there's a lot of Q&A on this topic, and there's a lot of products if you would like to know about. I've done plenty of research on them, and there's about a list of 1,000 different products that we should be purchasing. But again, it's making those small changes one day at a time and understanding what's in our food products and what's not all natural. And that's the agenda here. Again, we didn't want to come off negative, but again, awareness, you have to push it down somebody's throat, just like, medicine or taking fish oil for the first time. You don't want to really, you're like, I don't want to eat that. But sooner or later, you get used to it and you start to adapt. And that's the goal here. So again, thank you.
Yeah, such a pleasure. Thanks so much, Ollie.
I have to ask one question though, just one. You mentioned that, Ollie, that you like candy.
Yes.
Tell me what candy? I gotta know. Tell us.
Oh, even as a kid, I was making candy from scratch. I was in junior high making candy. So I'd boil my sugar and add a little glucose, and I'd even make the chocolate, and I would go to school and sell it, That's how I made my money. I was an entrepreneur since I was a
Budding
kid.
entrepreneur, yeah.
But you see, candy has changed over the years. It doesn't taste like real chocolate,
No.
and the quality of it, it's changed, and the milk in it, and the fats. It's not the same as when I was growing up, and I know the difference. But I like those old fashioned candies. I like the sour cherries, which are bad for you because all the red food coloring it. But I love the old fashioned candies.
Like the little Coke bottle ones, like
the chicken sticks, and
yeah. I like the little pineapple. Wasn't it pineapple triangles? The ones that were like you can only find them at like old candy shops. They're probably from the 80s.
the Zag nuts, all those old fashioned candies that you go to Pier 39 in San Francisco and get. But
yeah. I was just curious. And
Are chocolate covered almonds considered candy?
See, his body is a temple.
I love chocolate covered raisins. They're, anything, but again, the chocolate has changed. Those Kit Kats aren't the same. The Snickers aren't the same. Unfortunately, I know that they changed the recipe.
Yeah, well, there was a lot on that when I was researching to just be smart enough to hold a conversation with you two geniuses. There's a lot on what happened to chocolate, but I just think it's important to note for the people that even you two have a vice.
No doubt. Everyone does.
What's yours, David? Did you?
I drive too fast.
Really chocolate almonds? Like really? What is?
No, it was baked sweets. I like to have dessert almost after every meal except breakfast, and so I'm now rethinking that recently to like the fruits as a good sweet substitute for the processed stuff with seed oils and all that stuff that's not so great for you. Because I believe in aging gracefully, and I don't like chronic pain, and I like being here on Earth. So if I can do it independently as possible, then those little changes make a difference for me.
Makes sense.
Thank you for humoring me. I gotta know. I have to ask this question. It's not even my show, and look at me ask questions. So thank you for sharing that.
Okay.
And
yes.
Thank you for asking.
Such fun to spend time with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.